Perfect. Thank you so much, Clara. So before we start with our topic, I would like to just quickly tell you about what we are and what we do at Digital Switzerland. We're a Swiss-wide cross-section. Perfect. Thank you so much, Clara. So before we start with our topic, I would like to just quickly tell you about what we are and what we do at Digital Switzerland. We're a Swiss-wide cross-sector initiative that aims to strengthen and transform Switzerland into a leading digital nation. And our mission is to coordinate and facilitate the process of digital transformation of Switzerland. We are member-based with over 170 members and partners that collaborate with us on different Swiss-wide initiatives, also in different areas. And we're working on, for instance, education, e-sustainability, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, to just name a few. So in the beginning of this year, we actually started with some of our AI activities in 3 topical areas: AI literacy, AI regulation, and ecosystem collaboration. If you want to know more about what we do there, please feel free to reach out to me. So we're discussing digital trust today. For some years now, the term digital trust has been used to define the relationship between providers and users of digital technologies. And we've all noticed that the trust factor has moved to the top of the agenda of companies as they have realized that the trust placed in them is very business critical, but also very fragile. And in the age of AI, digital trust is no longer just seen as some securing systems or protecting data, but it's really building confidence in how AI systems are developed, how they're deployed, and also how they're governed. So as AI is becoming more and more pervasive, this is really a challenge or new challenges that we need to tackle. And this is why we're here today to hear from experts how they are working in the digital trust ecosystem. And we're specifically looking into the digital trust label and seeing how this is deployed. We will first listen to the 4 presentations of our speakers, and we'll then open up the discussion and to the audience. You can at any time already ask your questions in the chat, and we will make sure that that the questions will be answered during the Q&A. I'm now happy to welcome our speakers today. Thank you very much for taking the time over the lunch break to discuss with us. We have Nicolas Zahn. He's the Managing Director of Swiss Digital Initiative. Lukas Bodner, Senior Security Evaluator at SGS Brightsight. Arman Iranfar, Head of AI at CertX. And Christina Meyer, Digital Ethics Specialist at Swiss Post. Here I hand over to you, Nicola. I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about the digital trust label.
Thank you very much, Cecile, for organizing this, and also great to see some of our clients and partners here today in this call. For the presentation, I guess I just can tell you to move forward, right? So I'll briefly try to set up the stage and explain how we approach digital trust as the Swiss Digital Initiative, particularly through the use of the digital trust label that we've developed and that's been in use since 2 years. Next slide, please. Just some short background for those of you who haven't heard of us yet. We're an initiative that initially started as a project of Digital Switzerland. We've then been established as a foundation based in Geneva with the mission of securing ethical standards and promoting responsible conduct in a digital world. Digital trust is obviously part of this, but we've also had other projects related to AI ethics and corporate digital responsibility. But digital trust, and in particular the digital trust label, is certainly been our main activity, as you can see here with the launch of the label in 2022. Next slide, please. We're a multi-stakeholder initiative, meaning that we try to bring together other actors in various industries and backgrounds, from academia to the private sector to the public sector. You can see that so far we had a couple of companies from Switzerland and abroad using the digital trust label for their digital services. Next slide, please. And why we think that labels and certifications and standards can help, and I'm sure Arman is going to go into more detail there as well from his perspective, is because the main challenge really lies in breaking down those abstract principles of being trustworthy and being transparent, and make it really concrete, make it really tangible, make it really part of the everyday work, and make it also measurable. And that's been the main challenge that we've faced, and that we try to address with the digital trust label, which is based on a criteria catalog. And the criteria in turn are based on or inspired by established industry standards for various dimensions that we look at. So you see them at the bottom of the slide. We look at cybersecurity, we look at data protection, we look at reliability and fair user interaction, which mostly means how does a digital service provider communicate towards its clients. And we try to base this basically pick and choose various elements from new legislation and new standards to create this new criteria catalog. Next slide, please. Of course, as technology advances and as the regulatory landscape shifts as well, this needs to be continuously updated. And we've seen a major spike in interest for digital trusts now with developments that we've seen recently in the field of artificial intelligence, which has already been a topic of concern for us from the very beginning. For example, already the first version of our criteria catalog addressed automated decision making. But now with the proliferation of large language models and chatbots, etc., we see that there's a huge pressure for digital service providers to integrate AI features into the digital services. And we want to reflect this as well in the digital trust label, which is why we've updated the criteria catalog early this year to focus more on AI elements and the trust questions that they raise. For example, am I now interacting with a human person when I call a service hotline, or am I interacting with a chatbot? How was this machine learning system trained? Is there any bias in the training data? Are there any risk management frameworks in place to address concerns there? Next slide, please. Just to give you an overall idea and also to set a bit the stage for the discussion going forward, you will hear in the coming months and years, we will hear much more about AI standards. And I think this slide provides sort of a framework to map various initiatives that all run under the banner of standards or labels or certifications, but they can mean quite a lot of different things. So in the top left corner, you see sort of the core, where we also currently see most industry interest when it's really about hard law, about regulations that are directly linked to compliance. So stuff that companies absolutely need to do, otherwise they can incur fines. So that's the combination of the compliance dimension. But on the other hand, and this is much more how we also position the digital trust label, you can also say such a certification and such a label can act as a differentiator in the market. So you're less interested, not necessarily interested in compliance with certain legal or jurisdictional regulations. You're more interested in differentiating yourself and getting a competitive advantage, because you can show to your clients that in contrast to your competitors, you are more trustworthy because you adhere to a higher standard. And as you can see here, we have various initiatives that either are already running or are currently being developed, led by various actors. Some come from the private industry, some come from civil society actors, some come from the technical community like IEEE. You also have lots of research-focused initiatives that you see on the bottom right-hand side, like the Alice network, where all Switzerland is also involved to really spearhead research in artificial intelligence. Next slide, please. And just to summarize how we see a label as part of the overall discussion of the digital trust ecosystem, as you've outlined, that's one of the priorities for Digital Switzerland, and we think rightly so. In our view, the digital trust ecosystem has various dimensions. You can talk about regulations and standards where you need to have laws and codes for data protection, cybersecurity, etc. But you also need to talk about the trustworthiness of electronic infrastructure. Do we have the basis that actually allows us to have a vibrant digital ecosystem? Do we have electronic identity? Do we have methods of secure and trustworthy data exchange between different authorities and different stakeholders? And where the label, we think, comes in is at the last section when we think about trustworthy services. So even if you have a good infrastructure, even if you have laws, there's still this gap for consumers to figure out, are the digital services that I'm now using as an individual person really compliant with all these regulations, and are they even trustworthy? Because we know the regulators keep on catching up with technological progress. So there's always going to be that gap. And we think that we can address this with a certification such as the Digital Trust label. I think that's the last slide from my presentation. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicola, for this insightful presentation. We will actually move on to the next presentation right away. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat so we can actually discuss them after all the presentations. So here I hand over to CertX Arman.
Thank you so much. So very briefly about CertX. CertX is a certification body accredited by Swiss Accreditation Service in business of certification and inspection since almost 7 years ago, mainly functional in safety, cybersecurity, and since almost 3 years ago in AI. And I'm head of AI at CertX, responsible for our certification services, assessment, and evaluations. Can you please move to the next slide? So whenever we talk about certification, we should talk about 3 different items here, and I'd like to distinguish between laws and regulations, principles and frameworks, and in the end, some technical standards, and all of which should be kind of packaged in a certificate, a trust label, something that builds a trust first off within a company, because normally the top management, they like to understand if there is any risk involved within their company, if their end product or service is trustworthy or not. This is the first motivation. The second one, of course, it could be for marketing reasons, to build trust between you and your clients, your end customers. And the third does not apply to everybody, but applies to high-risk domains, safety-critical application, and so on and so forth, is to comply with regulations. So there are several actors here. What enables compliance with the laws and regulations are technical standards. We need to have some technical measures, metrics, methodologies to follow and show that we are compliant with the laws. In the end, that's the important item here. Also, that builds trust between you and your clients and also within a company. On the left of this slide, you see that there are so many different initiatives from different countries. EUA Act is one of the most important and advanced one. We have things from the US. President Biden recently had an executive order. We don't see here more official activity from Switzerland, but that doesn't mean that Switzerland is passive and not active. Actually, Switzerland and CertX is delegate, Swiss delegate in ISO SC42, Joint Technical Committee 21, and Sensenelec. Recently, I was honored to sit as head of delegate for Switzerland in Versailles, where all countries participated in ISO SC42 plenary meetings and other working groups to discuss the roadmap for standardization of AI, how to enable different actors to be compliant with the laws, regulations within certain principles and frameworks. Next slide, please. So now I want to show you a picture from where we can start from the laws and regulations and how compliance can be achieved through following more technical standards. These can be, again, as I mentioned, can be packaged in one assessment and certification schema. You can call it whatever, as long as they enable you follow technical measures and there is a direct link to the laws and regulations, you can definitely build trust. Looking at the EUI Act, you see several objectives and high-level requirements. EUI Act is a piece of law. It doesn't necessarily tell you what you need to exactly do for risk management, what you exactly need to do for data and data governance. It defines, of course, what is transparency, but what are the enablers to achieve transparency within the AI lifecycle? So there are several, I can tell you tens of standards only and only from ISO SC42 committee, but also from IEEE and other activities that Nicolas already showed. There are all these measures that can be linked to EUI Act and show you how your compliance journey would look like. Let's, as an example, take data and data governance. Looking only at this picture, and you can think of almost 40 more standards. I just showing here the most practical ones. We have here data quality, which is actually a series. There are 6 parts, and we have data bias. All those together, they address data and data governance issues. We have accuracy, robustness, cybersecurity. Cybersecurity means compliance also with 27001 series, more traditional, conventional cybersecurity practices. But now we have issues with AI, and those need to be also addressed. And for them, fortunately, we have technical standards to enable us move toward this journey. Next slide, please. So here is a little bit more detailed picture of different activities that you need to do. And if you want to go for certification, some of them, if they are relevant to the scope of your organization, your processes and your product will be also evaluated. Your journey starts from inception. This is an official standard AI lifecycle. In inception, you first need to understand what is your mission. What do you want to do? From where you start and where do you want to go? Based on that, you can analyze your risks. You should also identify your stakeholders. Who is the end user? Is it me as a data scientist or is it a plain user? Then we can think about system requirements. And if you're already an established company, you need to think about change management because that's going to be one of the trickiest parts. If you already have established company, you need to go through different layers and adjust changes in order to be compliant. So to put it short, there are several stages, design and developments. Also from here, we can think of about more technical measures and metrics to be implemented, more technical processes. We have several items to be practiced during verification and validation, and also deployment, ops and monitoring, and finally retirement. How, for example, we need to dispose our data or model. Can you move to the next slide? What is important for the beginning of the journey is to understand the business context. What are the risks? How using AI will impact you, your business, your service, your product, and your customer, how it will change your interaction with the regulatory frameworks. Before that, for example, an HR system, would not need to comply with any regulations. Now, if they use AI to kind of automate the process of recruitment and hiring, now you need to take a serious look into the AI Act. So you see that using AI will change how you interact with the world. How you need to analyze the risks, you first need to look at the AI modality. Are you doing a computer vision? Are you using tabular data? Are you a recommendation system? What is the end product? Is it a computer vision system to distinguish between cat and dog? Or it's a computer vision system to distinguish between a human and a tree and is gonna be deployed on an autonomous vehicle? So you need to consider all these as a beginning of your journey. And then thinking about the risk, you think of what kind of measures, metrics, methodology you need to put into your process and day-to-day activities to be compliant with the EUA Act and other relevant laws and regulations. Next slide, please. I will go over to this slide quite fast. You have heard of certification, audit, inspection, assessment. This is actually a complete picture of every single step that you need to take in order to achieve an official certification. It may look like a little bit complicated, and fortunately, unfortunately, this is like that. Of course, we try to simplify the journey for you by doing the scoping session to understand what are you doing, and then we refer to the certification and assessment schema. This certification and assessment schema, you can think of a digital trust label. I mean, it has based some criteria. We have created our own comprehensive certification and assessment schema based on the ISO standards. Then we will do a gap analysis, what you have and what you not have. If you have not, for example, practiced any risk assessments, then we need to stop the process, because without knowing, understanding your risk, it's impossible to go through detailed documentation review or performing some tests. You see two branches after the gap analysis. One is dedicated to your technical documentation review. Maybe audit sessions, on-site audit sessions are necessary. And the other branch is about performing some tests, understanding if you achieve a fairness KPI. The level of fairness, is it sufficient for you? The robustness, is it sufficient for you or not? And that be evaluated on the product level. If both the audit and the test are successful, of course, you are granted a certificate. And in any case, you are delivered a report so that you understand where you are compliant with or what are the recommendations for you. Would you please move to next slide? So this is how a comprehensive assessment and certification framework or schema would look like. You should start usually from standards, norms. For example, for CertX business, because we are more active in ISO subcommittee 42, we heavily invested on ISO standards, but it can also be derived from other worldwide accepted or nationally accepted norms and standards. You should know about the objectives, requirements. Sometimes you have recommendations, and then means of compliance. Means of compliance are the practices that you need to follow to show your conformity with the law. And that could include documentation, methodology, tests, and metrics. The second question to you, according to the certification schema, is that for what level you want it. Do you want it at the organization level? Maybe we need to only look at your management system. But if you want for process and product, different items will be involved. Then in the end, the full coverage of the AI lifecycle is necessary, and a map to the risks of, for example, here as a piece of law, again, EUA Act is now referred to. These are the risk categories that if, for example, if you are practicing a prohibited application according to the law, you cannot certify that. You basically need to stop. If you are a high-risk system, you need to follow certain rules. However, if you are limited or minimum, the situation will change for you. Thank you so much. I think that was the last slide.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Arman, for this very step-by-step instruction. Very helpful. Let's move on, and let's try to really keep the 5 minutes per presentation, so we actually have some time at the end for a discussion. So I hand over to you, Lukas.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, also thank you to Arman for the very detailed overview. I think a lot of said already. I'm happy to get the chance to provide a little overview about SGLs in general and what our core business is and what role we do play in the world of digital trust. So please move on to the next slide. So to the beginning, some numbers. So with over 99,000 employees located around the world, we work across 5 business lines and throughout the full supply chain of our customers. And with this, we provide special solutions to improve the quality, the safety, and the productivity of our customers. And also, of course, to reduce their risks. We saw beforehand that there is a wild jungle of regulations and standards. So with the help of over 2,000 offices around the world, this really helps to have the local expertise and spread it on a global scale. And this means we are today one of the leading providers for the testing, inspection, and certification industry, and are a globally recognized benchmark for quality and integrity. Next slide, please. So SGS is a TIC company, which means we provide services for testing, certification, and inspection. And this helps the businesses, and the businesses benefit from the trust and the confidence that they get from independent TIC service companies. And this will help them to improve in their trust and confidence. Next slide, please. As Nicola also mentioned in the beginning, we will see in the future, of course, a definite trend in the direction of AI. And this is also what is one of the mega trends that is driving SGS. We see it that we have a strong growth in the digital trust and a strong need to get the confidence there. And these mega trends help us to come to the exact strategic decisions that we make. And this is where SGS Brightsight comes into play. And please have a look at the next slide. As said, where we are seeing a rapid digital growth in the fast technological advancement, we want to improve it. And while technologies like AI, for instance, offer incredible opportunities, of course, they also bring new risks. And our focus is on building trust in these technologies through our digital services. In general, we are doing cybersecurity evaluation for the full range of IT products, such as a payment terminal or hardware chips, but also for digital services. And we also help to support the compliance and risk management process across all the sectors. And in this context, we had the chance to successfully finish already AI certifications for the ISO 42000 standard. And of course, also in context of today's community talk, we are also the auditing partner for the Digital Trust Label, where we serve with the expertise to audit the criteria for the criteria catalog. So I am very looking forward to see the development of the Digital Trust Label and to see how the companies tackle the challenges, especially for the new AI criteria in the future. I would say thank you. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to us.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lukas. Actually, now we've seen so Nicola talked about the Digital Trust Label and kind of how it fits into the landscape. Now we had 2 certification companies talk about their perspective, and now we will listen to the perspective of a company that has actually implemented the Digital Trust Label using an example. So Christina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm happy being here, and I will talk shortly about why we chose to get the Digital Trust Label for the service My Consignments, and giving you some insights on the implementation process from our perspective as an organization. My name is Christina. I work as a digital ethics specialist, so I'm not like a audit process manager in that sense, but I was involved in the Digital Trust Label implementation process and will give you a perspective from my side. Has any one of you maybe ordered something recently and is waiting for a parcel? Maybe yes, because then, yes, Nicolas, is waiting for a parcel, then you might know the service My Consignments. In German, it's called Meine Sendungen, and it's available on the website, but also in the Swiss Post app. It's where you can track your consignments, where you can also change the date of when your parcel should arrive, where you want to have it delivered, and so on. So that's the service we're talking about, and that's a service that got a Digital Trust label 1 year ago. Why did we choose to get the Digital Trust label for My Consignments? Well, for Swiss Post, trust is essential. And as listed on the next slide, we have made, thank you very much. Trust has been relevant for us for the last 175 years. We, as a Swiss Post, stand for the secure and trustworthy transport of information, goods, people, and values. So we also transport people in our post autos, but information, goods, Postfinance with money, and so on. So trust is essential for us. It has been essential for us, and it also will be essential for us tomorrow and in the digital world. And we already have many aspects, as also Arman listed before, that help us adhering to the trust level, like regulations, laws, standards, and so on. But if you want to change to the next slide, the Digital Trust label for us was a possibility to go beyond security and data protection aspects, and also incorporate aspects around like fairness, reliability, digital ethics aspects. So that was a reason why we chose to get the Digital Trust label for one of our services. Of course, we were also curious, what does it mean? On the one hand, internally, what will we experience during the certification process? What does it mean for us as an organization? But also to get some voices from customers and external views on what does it mean to have this Digital Trust label. And for us, it was important to choose a private customer service. We have many services at Swiss Post, and My Consignments is the most frequently used post service for private customers. So that was why we chose to get a Digital Trust label for that service specifically. And what did it mean to us to implement this Digital Trust label? Well, as you see on the next slide, it's very easy. You have a kickoff, you have an audit, and then you get the label. And of course, it's not that easy and done within 5 minutes. We had several loops and some iterations. First of all, you have to define the scope, what is in scope, what is out of scope of the service, because Meine Sendungen is in the app, for example. It is close to other services that we offer. So that was an important aspect that we had to look at. It means the involvement of many different internal stakeholders, which of course takes time, and you have to coordinate and collaborate a lot, but it also helps to have the commitment and to foster the view also beyond the security and data protection aspects, and to incorporate the digital ethics mindset as well. And what did it mean also? Of course, listing various company documents, get an overview over them, and yeah, in order to prepare the audit process. And also when the audit started, we had some loops and iterations there again, some minor issues coming up. For example, there were regulatory changes last year. You might all have been involved with those aspects with the new data protection law. That meant for us as an organization that we changed many things, also like transparency-wise, what was listed on the website, processes, and so on. And we decided to wait a moment there and to have the audit being done on the updated setting in order to be to have the actual aspects integrated in the audit process. So those were some of the loops that we took during the implementation process. And in September last year, we got the label for My Consignments. And where we stand now is where the pin is set. It has been 1 year now, and Lukas is smiling a bit. Yes, we are in the re-audit process now, because it's not a one-shot thing to get the label. Of course, you have constantly you look into it on a yearly basis, and right now we are in the middle of the re-audit process for the Digital Trust label, which have the new criteria that was also already mentioned. And maybe if you switch to the next slide. Yes, the new criteria for AI systems is now also incorporated in the criteria catalog. Of course, that means for us as Swiss Post that those criteria apply for My Consignments now. So far, we do not have any AI systems implemented in the service, but we really welcome the integration of AI-specific aspects. It is in line with our Swiss Post's internal ambitions. We have guidelines and so on for AI systems, also fostering transparency aspects and so on. So that's really will also help us for the future in case we will develop some new features in the service My Consignments. So that was a short and brief overview of how we implemented the Digital Trust label for My Consignments. And I'm giving back to you, Cecile, I think.
Perfect. Thank you so much for these illustrative presentations and yeah, your different perspectives on the Digital Trust label, or generally the Digital Trust as a whole. I would like to open the discussion now. So anyone in the audience who has questions can put them in the chat. But what is nice as a moderator is I get to ask the first questions. So I will start with a question to you, actually, Nicola. So we've now actually had the example of Swiss Post showing how they implemented the Digital Trust label. Is there a reason behind why not all or relatively few organizations actually do this, implement this Digital Trust label? Is it very difficult to implement it, or what could be the reasons?
So the main reasons that we hear are that there's not enough pressure from the clients yet. If you think of other fields, for example, like sustainability, when it comes to consumer goods, there we have much more awareness and also much more pressures from consumers that are really demanding this. And so companies do see a very direct effect and also a benefit. Then again, it took those labels 10 years to get where they are today. So we are still in the very early stages of our label and the journey of this project. That's one aspect, lack of awareness on the client side. The other aspect was mentioned by Christina, and is absolutely correct. I mean, it is a lot of effort to obtain this, but this was how should I say, that was a decision made explicitly on our end when we designed the label, because there are other initiatives out there that, for example, rely on a self-assessment by the companies, where of course it's much easier to just like go through a questionnaire and say, oh yeah, we're totally doing this. And then you don't have a third party like we have now with SGS that independently verifies this. We think that such self-assessments might be much easier for the companies, but they don't provide the clear and strength and credible signal towards the clients, towards the customers that we wanted to have. So we acknowledge that it is a lot of effort, and we are very happy to have Swiss Post and other companies on board. But we agree that it is a lot of effort, and maybe we need to think of how we can set the bar a little bit lower to increase the adoption.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. We actually have a question from the chat. Clara?
Yes, hello. Thank you for your interesting contributions. The first question from the chat is from Christian Hunziker, and he wants to know if we see he wants to ask for Swiss Post, so you, Christina, if you see an increase in usage since you applied this trust label, or do you receive any other feedback from consumers?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. To be honest, an increase in the usage, we probably did not get that from the digital trust label. It is a service that is very often used anyways, but we got some responses from customers and also from, maybe I call it communities, because of course the label to people who actually are more active in the field and have a closer look into trust issues notice it more often than people maybe just waiting for their next 1 or 2 parcels. We got positive feedback. We also had some surveys that showed that we had some impact on some persons. I would not say they are representative in a way that we can say, yes, of course, it increased in the number of XY. But that is one aspect of the label, the external appearance. I also think it is very important to mention the internal aspects, that you create awareness for aspects internally, that you have a label, and Swiss Post has almost 50,000 employees, that you can take employees and internal processes on a way and also foster the awareness on digital ethics aspects, on security, data protection aspects. So I think there we also realized many positive feedbacks.
Thank you very much. Then I will continue with the next question from the chat. This one goes to Nicolas as well. And now that AI-related criteria have been built into the digital trust label, will certified businesses using AI have to recertify within a certain time limit, or and then otherwise the certification will be basically taken away, or do you have a process for that instilled?
Yeah, thank you, Roland, for that question. The process is as follows. Whenever you conclude one audit, that audit is based on a version of the criteria catalog. And this is also shown in the certificate that you get afterwards. So you can see based on which version of the criteria catalog was this label awarded. Now that we've adjusted the criteria catalog, it only becomes relevant for the next regularly scheduled audit. So we do not trigger an audit with every new version, but whenever the next audit would regularly take place, for example, the surveillance audit after 1 year, you would then use the criteria catalog version that is most that's the most recent one. I hope that clarifies the question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And then I have a question also for Arman. We talk a lot about the regulatory changes and the changes in assessment standards that create many challenges for organizations to simply keep up with. Besides the ISO standard that you mentioned, what are the most prominent and common standards that you work with? And how do you also assess the digital trust label with those? Is that possible?
So I think second part of your question, digital trust label can be not only more nationally adopted, but also maybe can be internationally adopted, but under one condition. There must be gap analysis and assessments done so that we understand the requirements outlined for the digital trust label. How do they compare, or how do they satisfy the high level requirements of the international law? If we perform such a study and we show it publicly, we make white papers, we make awareness. In the end, the question is that, do I know this exists or not? This is the criteria. We were 2 weeks ago in World Summit AI. And still, some people are asking that, what is compliance even? What is trust? What is AI trust? Why AI has trust issue? There are businessmen that they know how to use AI to grow their business, but they are not aware of the fact that AI is different from conventional software development. So if this kind of awareness worldwide, or at least nationally, we have it, and we show that how a solution like a digital trust label or similars, they can satisfy your needs, from building trust within your organization to building trust between you and your clients. If we show that this kind of labels, they help, of course, they can be adopted more and more, even worldwide.
So that means that the digital trust label could eventually maybe become something like a blueprint also for the international organizations, that not only includes quantitative standards and assessments, but maybe also the trust in a more qualitative approach.
Exactly. So the point here is that what we see from 3 years ago, the issue that we have EUI Act, is that every country started to think about, oh, there should be something done for the AI trustworthiness. And now we see that now we are converging to something. US is now running studies to compare what they are doing to the EUI Act. Brazil is doing the same, Korea is doing the same. So we are converging. So if we also take that study to converge and align with other regulations, we need to also lobby. This lobby issue is actually also very important. And I think Switzerland is quite active. And I'm sure that if we can get more synchronization meetings, what requirements are included in the digital trust label, and communicate it to SNV, which is the actual standardization network in Switzerland, responsible for all ISO, Sensenelec, and EU activities. I think we can lobby and make it even have a great impact on the higher level decisions made at the EU level or ISO level.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting. I have also a question for Lukas. We talk a lot about these success stories, which is of course important, especially in such an ever-changing environment, to stay motivated. But is there also examples that you can mention as a reality check? Do you have to turn down requests for certificates sometimes? And what is the most common problem that organizations may have who fail to receive the certification?
Yeah, of course. I mean, luckily, all the companies have some security background and already focus on security during the development lifecycle. So this is a good sign. And this is also something where I want to jump on the train what Arman had. So in the past, if you look back 20 years, maybe nobody had security in mind. And whenever you had a tool developed and finished, you rush to the market and sell it. And this is the good thing that we see today for security. I think all of the companies that we had during the audit, they had a secure development lifecycle. So there's an internal process where the developers can have a look and get an idea what does security mean, even though they don't have the background for it. So there's strict guidelines internally. So this is, I think, what is the goal also for the future for AI projects? Well, there should be a development by design, with having all the ideas in the background. Speaking about negative, yes, of course, during the discussions, there is always questions and questions for clarification. This is also the reason why we do not typically say everything is good and congratulations. Of course, there is multiple rounds. If we do see something, we need to trigger this, and this is the role of the independent company that does the testing, right? We do not stop to ask questions just because it takes more time. This is what we need to do. And if it takes 2 rounds, it's also good. So we give the time to the customers to improve on their end as well. And if we see there is an improvement and we also have the belief they are implementing it correctly, then we can give in the end also an okay or a pass. Yes, there was also customers that did not get the label. But yeah, this is of course always happening, both situations.
Thank you very much. And there's another question, I think, for you in the chat. So Alexandra is asking, she's the founder of an IT company providing digital business solutions with AI implementation. And if she understood correctly, SGS certifies not only a product, but also a digital service. Could you please provide more information about this? For example, is there an SGS certification for a chatbot with AI implementation, for example?
Yes, of course. I mean, digital trust label is the exact example for this. So typically, if you have a look at the ISO standards like 27K or 42K, you have a look at the processes of the full company and are you following them? And the goal of the digital trust label is to exactly have a look at the specific digital service and asking the question, do they fulfill the criteria or not? So yes, if there is a digital service that includes a chatbot or something similar, then I would say this is something that we definitely should have a look at, for instance.
Thank you very much. I'll quickly have a look at the chat. If we have other questions there. Yeah,
Right.
I would have one. Oh, sorry, Ceci, go ahead.
Right now, there's no new question in the chat.
Well, maybe I can ask a question then to Christina, because I think it's very interesting how you say you have to start with something like a service that's also relevant to us, the consumers. And have you already started to also apply the label to other business units of Swiss Post? Or how is it that the My Consignments is for now the stream in which you apply it? And is there a possibility that you can do it for Swiss Post as a whole in the future?
I think there is a possibility to have a digital trust label for another service in the future. I think it's important to mention that it's not for Swiss Post as a whole, because we have so many different services. So it's really about the separate services, and there it really depends on which ones to choose. And I would say it's not. There could be a chance that we apply it for others as well. We wanted to start with one service and see what the also what customers mentioned, how it proceeded internally, and so on. And then we will have some insights there and might also expand it to other solutions.
And did you have any practical challenges when you were in the implementation process? Or can you say, taking away now, as this was the pilot, let's say, project for you, is there something that you would improve in the future?
I think, as I mentioned, of course, we had some loops and iterations, and I think those are also important and give credibility to the process and to the label. So I think that's an important part of the whole certification process. To improve, I think you always learn, but I guess like how you list the documents, how the communication works, and so on. I think that went very well. And as I also mentioned, there were some aspects with the changing law and so on, which made it a bit more complicated maybe also. And of course, that has to be taken into consideration as well.
Thank you very much.
Maybe one last question before we close. Arman actually had a question to you, Christina. So from the kickoff meeting, how much time did it actually take until you obtained the trust label?
Yeah, maybe to mention, I was not in the kickoff meeting because I was not at Swiss Post at that moment, so it took a while. But we had the first audit at the time where this law was not in line yet. So we really said, okay, now we wait for a moment. And it was not so that we were in like continuous contact with SGS or with the audit company, but that we really decided, okay, we'll wait till we have these things implemented, and then it makes sense to proceed.
All right. Thank you very much, Christina. And thank you, everyone, to the speakers and to the audience for this very informative lunch break webinar. We actually always end our community talks with a short Mentimeter to kind of hear from you what are the main learnings that you take home from this session. So it would be great to get a few answers here. You can just scan the QR code or also use the code that is linked at the top. So let's see. Yes, okay, the first response is coming in, so it means the link works. So digital trust still is an issue which lacks awareness, help in the jungle of many law standards, trust label for chatbots. So yeah, generally we good to know that Swiss companies look for means to show digital trust. I think you should promote tour service more. IT audits are very dynamic. We will see much more certifications and standards in the coming months. Support customers to feel safer. I would agree with this one as well. So yes, generally we learned a lot about the different stakeholders' involvement in the implementation of a label that promotes digital trust for consumers. And yes, I mean at the end we still have a relatively long way to go, and it's great to have some examples that are leading the way to see that it's actually worthwhile and users can trust your services. So please reach out to the experts if you want to know more, or also reach out to me in case you want to learn more about what we do at Digital Switzerland. And without any further ado, I leave you to your afternoon, and thank you very much everyone for participating. Bye bye.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.